It's 8 o'clock. This is the UK Tonight. Coming up, Britain's Jewish community under attack. Counter-terror police investigate how 4 ambulances were set on fire in a suspected anti-Semitic hate crime. Also ahead, Sir Keir Starmer holds an emergency Cobra meeting as the war on Iran threatens a cost-of-living crisis. And the British couple jailed in Tehran who say the government has abandoned them. Coming up, we'll hear what it's like being behind bars in a war zone and the family's plea to help get them out. Also tonight, Sky News tracks down a fraudster in Tenerife.
Are you going to go back and hand yourself in, Pamela?
No, because...
You've done nothing wrong, why are you here?
Because my appeal's going through.
And Scotland becomes the first part of the UK to test newborn babies for a rare muscular disease. We'll hear why campaigners want the rest of the country to follow. All that to come, and much more on the UK Tonight. Police are working to authenticate claims that a group linked to Iran is behind an arson attack on 4 ambulances belonging to a Jewish charity in North London. The chief rabbi described it as a sickening assault not only on the Jewish community, but on the values that we all share as a society. It comes at a time when Jews in the UK and around the world are facing a growing pattern of violent attacks. Our communities correspondent Lisa Holland has our first report tonight.
In the early hours of the morning, 3 people, their faces covered, were captured on CCTV approaching the ambulances in what's being described as an arson attack. The explosions are the sounds of gas canisters inside the vehicles blowing up in Golders Green in North London.
We had a really loud bang from my bedroom. My wife didn't wake up, but I got up, instantly could smell this really thick smoke in the apartment, went to check out the window of my bedroom and saw a fire. So I went to wake my wife and daughter up and, just tried to evacuate as quickly as possible. You read the news and it does affect you, but you're like, well, that's still far away. And then it happens at your front door and you're like, OK, well, how safe are we?
Daylight revealed the damage. The Hatzolah Volunteer Service provides emergency medical care for Jewish and non-Jewish residents. The ambulances were parked outside a synagogue. The blaze is being treated as a race hate crime and also now being investigated by the Metropolitan Police as a possible terrorist incident. The government has said it will replace the ambulances, but this incident is about so much more than 4 destroyed vehicles. Since the October the 7th attacks, Jewish communities around the UK have faced rising anti-Semitism. They've become even more fearful since the Israeli-American war against Iran started. The chief rabbi, Ephraim Mervis, visited the synagogue to inspect the damage. Nobody was injured.
How low can you get?
Absolutely.
But even to a community looking over its shoulder, it's come as a shock.
This is a hideous, evil attack on a facility that has been created and that exists to save life, Jewish and all life.
Are you aware that counter-terrorism police are now investigating this incident?
I'm not surprised, because we have the influence of Iran globally and right here in London, as has been proved recently, and the level of potential terrorist activity is high. We saw what happened in the Heaton Park Synagogue in Manchester on the 2nd of October, on our holy day of Yom Kippur. We've seen how others have been brought to justice, and this needs to be treated at the highest possible level of seriousness.
Police say they're looking into a claim made online taking responsibility for the attack. A newly formed Iran-aligned group posted a video on social media, including footage of the aftermath, but there's currently no further evidence linking the group to the incident. At the scene, there was a welcome show of support for the community, which often feels it pays the price for global events. Barak Stern has run this butcher's shop for 13 years.
It's time for the government to do something very, very urgent.
To what extent do you think Jewish communities in the UK are less safe because of events in the Middle East?
It's definitely got some sort of effect on us, but it shouldn't really, because what has it got to do with us, what's going on there? So we are not decision makers. This is something which is happening. We're just citizens and we deserve our security.
Police are scouring local streets, looking for clues which may have been left by the attackers as they made their escape. Another crime scene in a Jewish community, which raises questions once more about what can be done to stem the spread of anti-Semitism. Lisa Holland, Sky News, North London.
Let's get the latest now. Our correspondent Olivia Guthrie is in Golders Green for us tonight. And Olivia, I would imagine a very nervous night for the community there.
A very nervous night, but also a very angry night, Sarah-Jane. You can probably hear that there are some very noisy protesters just up the road from me, Jews and non-Jews, calling to stop the hate. Jewish people here tonight telling me that they just don't feel safe in the UK anymore. One couple saying that they are, in the wake of this attack, planning now to leave the UK. Now, as we've been hearing, there have been no arrests in the wake of these explosions. There have been forensic teams in the road behind me doing fingertip searches for evidence. Counter-terror police are involved in this, but as we've been hearing there, this is currently not being treated as a terror incident, although they are keeping their lines of inquiry open, and they say they are working around the clock to find those responsible. Now, the online portal that has been set up by the police is now taking footage from members of the public who may have video from before and after the attack. That group that claimed responsibility, well, the police say that that is a priority in their lines of inquiry, but that they are currently not finding evidence that is telling them that it is a genuine claim. Now, the Prime Minister has called this a deeply shocking anti-Semitic arson attack, and the West Streeting, the Health Secretary, said that he would be replacing those ambulances from this Jewish charity, but he said he wanted the non-Jews to stand up to anti-Semitism in this country. But as of tonight, we don't appear any closer, Sarah-Jane, to finding those responsible for what he called an evil attack.
Olivia, thank you. Olivia Guthrie in Golders Green for us tonight. Well, the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, describing, as Olivia said there, those arson attacks as deeply shocking.
Well, this is a horrific anti-Semitic attack. And, of course, my thoughts, I think all of our thoughts, will be with those in the vicinity, the residents who are understandably very concerned, a Jewish community across the country deeply concerned. I've already been in touch with community leaders this morning and will continue to do so during the day. But anti-Semitism has no place in our society, and it's really important that we all stand together at a moment like this.
Well, there have been expressions of solidarity with London's Jewish community from across the political spectrum. This afternoon, the Prime Minister met Jewish leaders in Downing Street. And one of them, Michael Uygur, Chief Executive of the Board of Deputies of British Jews. He was at that meeting, as I said, today. Good of you to come on the programme to speak to us. Good evening to you. I just wonder how you're feeling tonight. It's been a day of nervousness and anger amongst the Jewish community in London.
Yes, I think that's a fair summary. There's a great deal of anxiety in the Jewish community at the moment. This is an event that's come on the back of the arrest of Iranian suspects in North London a while ago. We know that there have been Iranians who have been scouting out Jewish buildings in London. So there is certainly a degree of anxiety in the community, but there's also a lot of resilience. We're not a community that's going to shy away and disappear. The synagogues, schools, Jewish charity events, everything's going to keep running as normally as we can make it with the support of our own services, the CST, and of course the police. So Jewish life will continue here. We will be resilient. But you're absolutely correct. There is a good deal of anxiety at the moment.
Yeah, brave and resilient, but in need of support. In that meeting with the Prime Minister today, what did you and other Jewish leaders say to him about what the Jewish community need right now?
So there are a number of different aspects. I mean, first of all, the government has been extraordinarily generous to the Jewish community in helping fund the infrastructure required to keep Jewish buildings safe. But that, of course, is an outrage. It's an outrage that we need to pay to keep Jewish buildings safe. But the government is fulfilling its responsibilities in that regard, as the previous Conservative government did as well. There are now some very important reviews going on into anti-Semitism, both in schools and in the health service. And we are reassured that the government is going to be taking those reviews very seriously, and will implement the recommendations as quickly as possible. One thing which we did not hear is that the government will be immediately banning the Islamist extremist groups that do continue to operate in the UK. It's something which we have been calling for a number of years. The Prime Minister has said repeatedly this is under review, but it's not actually happened. And I think many in the Jewish community would very much like to see these extremist Islamist groups banned.
Our communities correspondent Lisa Holland, her report came just before we started to speak tonight, and a number of members in the Jewish community in North London saying that actually, you know, they were thinking about leaving the UK. Such is the anxiety at the moment, as you put it, not just after the attack on these ambulances, but something that has been growing for a number of months now.
Yes, I think it is true to say that conversations about leaving are taking place. And if I think back to my childhood or my period as a young adult, that conversation did not really take place. Some people might choose to emigrate for all sorts of reasons, but it wouldn't have been because they felt unsecure here. I think it's true that those conversations are happening. When I hear them myself, so I know they're true. Important to realise that sometimes the grass is always greener, because we know that there are many people from Israel who are settling in the UK now within the Jewish community. So in a sense, there are people who see the situation as bad there and come here, and some who see it as bad here and go to Israel or elsewhere. I wouldn't want to give the impression that there is panic in the Jewish community. There is not panic. Like I said, we are a resilient community, and I think most of us want to see the future of the British Jewish community being as strong, as good as it has been for the last almost 400 years. We are very proud of our attachment to this country, to being British, and what really needs to happen is these attacks, which are attacks not only on the Jewish community, but on British way of life, need to be rooted out. That, I think, will help make the Jewish community feel much more secure here in this difficult period.
Michael Winger, Chief Executive of the Board of Deputies of British Jews, thank you for your time this evening. I really appreciate it. The Prime Minister chaired a meeting of the government's Emergency Cobra Committee this evening amidst warnings that the war on Iran could cause a cost of living crisis. Our political correspondent Rob Powell joins us now from Westminster. And what can you tell us, Rob?
Yeah, so this Cobra meeting was primarily focused on the economic impact of the conflict in the Middle East on the UK. So essentially, what impact it might have on the cost of living and in other parts of the economy. And in terms of what we've got from it, well, it will be told to MPs formally by the Chancellor tomorrow, but from the press note, the readout, as they call it, from this meeting that we've been given by Number 10, what we won't be hearing is about details of any big package to help people with energy bills. Actually, what they discussed and what will be talked about tomorrow in the Commons is more about what the government can do to keep prices down in the short term and prevent profiteering, prevent price gouging. So it's the stuff that the Prime Minister talked about when he was facing a committee earlier about giving the Competition and Markets Authority, the regulator, more teeth. There's talk here as well about introducing time-limited powers to make sure that companies, petrol providers, for instance, aren't hiking up prices at a greater rate than the wholesale cost is going up. So at the moment, I don't think the government believes we are in a place or can be in a place to talk about actually giving money to people to help with energy bills. I think that's in part because we don't quite know what the impact on energy bills will be, and we don't know what the Iran war and how it's going to progress in the short term.
Rob, thank you. Rob Powell with the latest there from Westminster tonight, even though it said Edinburgh. But I'm pretty sure Westminster's in London. Thanks, Rob. And now a woman described as a shameless fraudster who stole a vulnerable pensioner's life savings has been tracked down by Sky News in Tenerife. Pamela Gwinnett fled to the Spanish island after defrauding 89-year-old Joan Green of £300,000. It was our reporter, Phoebe Southworth, who managed to track her down. We'll be speaking to Phoebe in just a moment about how she did that. But first, let's take a look at her report.
Stop holding her hand like you.
Get off me!
No, they've told me you have to get out of the room.
You're frightening Joe.
Yes, this has nothing to do with you. I'm power of attorney.
Pamela Gwinnett was sentenced to 6 years in prison for conning a vulnerable pensioner out of hundreds of thousands of pounds. Joan Green doted on her family.
Joan's my nan. She was a hard woman. She didn't take any grief off anybody. But she was loving as well.
In their first broadcast interview, Joan's devastated family tell how a ruthless conwoman manipulated her way first into Joan's life, then her finances.
I had my doubts from day one. Alarm bells ringing all over.
You've never bothered with a cat.
Pamela Gwinnett's sudden friendship with Joan during the COVID-19 pandemic led to vulnerable and confused Joan granting her lasting power of attorney and ultimately control over her money. But one of Joan's carers courageously helped the family get into Joan's home to see her.
So this is that video where I had my camera in my shirt pocket recording her, and she had no idea that I was recording her with it.
Gwinnett shouts at Joan's stepdaughter and step-grandson David, accusing them of neglecting Joan and stealing from her.
Why are you bullying her?
You don't speak for her.
You're happy to say
yes,
that,
I do.
You intercepted all the mail from the care home and the house. You changed the landline phone number.
This has nothing to do with you. I'm power of attorney.
It soon became clear why Gwinnett was so keen to isolate Joan. She had been raiding her life savings.
She just filled her mind with horrible thoughts that her family didn't care about her, didn't love her and didn't want anything to do with her. When Pamela was there and the carers come to take over, she'd been left in her own faeces in bed.
When Joan died in 2022, aged 89, her family discovered gaping holes in her bank statements. Gwinnett was arrested. While on bail, she was ordered to surrender her passport to police, but boarded a plane to Tenerife instead. She was given a 6-year prison sentence for fraud and theft in her absence. In his damning sentencing remarks, the judge said, "To you, Joan Green was simply a cash cow to be milked until she was dry. You set about playing the long game to isolate and control a vulnerable woman and thereby enrich yourself. All told, you plundered Joan and her estate for nearly £300,000. Armed with Gwinnett's address in Tenerife, we set off to find her. This is where Gwinnett has been hiding in Tenerife. She's become notorious among her neighbours.
It must be horrible to think that somebody's living it large on a sunny island when your family's still grieving.
What is your message to her? Is it to leave?
Go home and face justice.
We spotted Gwinnett leaving another resident's apartment, an elderly man who lives alone.
Who said
You're supposed to be serving a prison sentence. You got 6 years last year and you're here in Tenerife. Why aren't you back in the UK?
Because I've got an appeal going on.
So you're appealing it so the judge was wrong? You shouldn't have got 6 years?
No.
Why's that? You did take Joan's money, didn't you?
No, never. A family took it. I'm her executor.
Why would Joan have Botox?
She died. Joan didn't buy Botox.
The judge said Botox, expensive.
No,
it was a $22.5 grand car.
This is...
Is that what Joan wanted?
No, that was a business car.
Are you going to go back and hand yourself in, Pamela?
No, because...
If you've done nothing wrong, why are you here?
Because my appeal's going through.
We showed Joan's family what Gwinnett said when we spoke to her in Tenerife.
So she's saying we stole the money. So on Pamela Gwinnett's bank accounts, it shows where she's transferred the money from Joan, my nan's accounts, to her own personal accounts. It's sickening. She should be in prison. She should be rotting in prison. All the evidence was there. Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
All this begs the question, was Joan really the first vulnerable person Gwinnett targeted?
She's evil, but she's very, very clever at what she does. She knows how to play the system.
Or was it just the first time it came to the attention of the authorities? And could there be other victims out there?
Oh, it's a devastating tale. Let's get more. Phoebe is here with us. And Phoebe, how did you track this woman down? It was with the help of the expat community, wasn't it?
Exactly that. So all the credit goes to Joan Green's family for making this happen and making it possible for us to end up on Pamela Gwinnett's doorstep to ask her these questions. They were so angry after Pamela Gwinnett was sentenced last year that she had fled to Tenerife, breaching her bail conditions. They posted all kinds of messages over expatriate groups on social media and just said, has anyone seen this woman? Can you help us find her? And lo and behold, a neighbour wrote back and said, yes, I know Pamela. She literally lives just a couple of doors down from me. And that's how a relationship then formed between that neighbour and Joan Green's family. And that led us all the way to Tenerife, to her doorstep.
Yeah, literally to her doorstep. So what happens now? Because the local MP for Joan's family just happens to be the Commons Speaker, Lindsay Hoyle. And, you know, that's what the family want to know. We know now where she is. There could be more victims. What are the next steps?
Well, the Speaker is incredibly supportive of Joan Green's family, and he himself described Pamela Gwinnett as a master of manipulation. And he did raise the question, you know, could there be other victims out there? And this is what he had to say.
My worry is, how many others have also lost money in the same way? This woman was a manipulator. This woman took advantage of elderly people. And I just wonder if we've had others within our area that have suffered the same fate. Their estates have disappeared to Gwinnett. She was a master of manipulation of vulnerable people. So please, if there's other people out there, do come forward. I don't think this is a one-off. I hope it is, but I suspect not.
So it's quite probable that maybe in the coming weeks, more people will come forward and say, yes, I recognise Pamela Gwinnett from your reports. And, you know, potentially there are other people that she's targeted.
OK. Well, Phoebe, thank you very much indeed. You can see Phoebe's full report online right now. It's on the Sky News app as well. Still to come here on the programme, a YouTuber who falsely claimed to be live streaming a video gaming session when his pregnant partner was killed is found guilty of her murder.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra Al-Baghir has this report.
And this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
A jury in Belfast has found Stephen McCulloch guilty of murdering his former partner, Natalie McNally. The jury heard that McCulloch had lied and lied again, peddling a false alibi that he was live streaming on YouTube on the evening of the murder. Our Ireland correspondent Stephen Murphy has this report.
Hello to all on this glorious Sunday evening. So I just thought, why not? I'm going to do a live stream.
It's just before Christmas 2022, and YouTuber Stephen McCulloch is launching into a live stream playing Grand Theft Auto.
Live stream's still going okay.
The stream will go on for 6 hours, but unknown to viewers, they were actually watching a concocted alibi for murder. The live stream, which he had dubbed The Violent Night, was pre-recorded. McCulloch was not at home gaming in Lisburn. He was secretly 17 miles away in Lurgan, caught on CCTV visiting the home of his partner, Natalie McNally. Natalie was 32 years old and 15 weeks pregnant with their baby boy. McCulloch, for reasons that may never be known, murdered his girlfriend and their baby with savage brutality.
Natalie, you were an inspirational person. Having you in our lives was the greatest joy we'll ever have. You would have been an amazing mother to baby Dean. We will love you forever, and we hope you can now rest easy.
During his trial here in Belfast, the court heard how McCulloch had recorded the fake live stream 4 days earlier and even blamed tech issues for the lack of viewer interaction.
Because this streaming software is kind of up the left, it means I can't check the live chat, which is a real shame.
Natalie suffered stab wounds to her neck, strangulation and blows to the head. Stephen McCulloch later admitted in a statement that the live stream had been pre-recorded.
I just realised I'm literally going to be drinking and driving. In the game, by the way, I'm not leaving the house tonight, so...
But he denied murdering Natalie. After a 4-week trial, the jury at Belfast Crown Court disagreed. Northern Ireland is in the grip of a violence against women epidemic. More than 30 women have been killed in recent years. On Saturday, a young mother of two, Amy Doherty, died in Derry. A man was arrested on suspicion of murder. A former homicide detective says the Troubles have left a legacy.
When you're living in a post-conflict society, as Northern Ireland is, you do have intergenerational trauma, and we have to have a joined-up approach to this. And to fix this, or else we're going to be coming back year after year saying, why have we so many domestic murders within Northern Ireland compared to the rest of Europe?
The McNally family today condemned the epidemic of violence.
As Natalie receives justice today, our hearts go out to all the victims of violence against women and girls. Our hope is that all the victims and families get their day in court and the justice they deserve. Violence against women and girls is the shame of our society, and we must do everything possible to end it.
For Natalie's family, there is at least now some closure. Their daughter's killer, who tried to hide behind technology, is now behind bars for life.
Thank you for watching. Good night.
Stephen Murphy, Sky News in Belfast.
Studs come on the UK tonight. A desperate plea from a British couple in prison in Tehran for Sir Keir Starmer to step up and help them. Plus, newborn babies in Scotland to be screened for a rare muscle wasting condition. But will the rest of the UK follow suit?
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist? I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up. Big Sky News journalist. Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is. First off, just the scale of what we're looking at. Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
A British man who is in prison in Tehran has criticised the UK government for abandoning him and his wife. Craig Foreman and his partner Lindsay were arrested in January last year while travelling through Iran during a round-the-world motorcycle trip. Speaking from prison in Tehran, Mr Foreman said he felt let down and called on the government to step out of the shadows to help.
My name is Craig Foreman. I've been a carpenter and joiner all my life, and I've been happily married to Lindsay for the last 10 years. We are both currently serving 14 months into a 10-year prison sentence in Evin Prison, Tehran, for crimes that were never committed, spying for the UK and Israel. We were charged based on falsified evidence that was fabricated to suit the maximum sentence. Our government are fully aware of this information and know we are 100% innocent. We are proud to be British, but right now we feel let down, alone, and completely frustrated by the lack of public defence by the people in charge of the government. It's very difficult to understand why our innocence has not been said publicly. We are not spies. The charges against us are simply not true. I am asking you, Sir Keir Starmer, Yvette Cooper, Hamish Wagner, and Hugo Shorter, you know we are innocent. Go public with the information you have to clearly step out of the shadows and help us. Our lives are constantly at risk. We are now in a prison, in a war zone. We have gone from a challenging situation to a life-threatening situation. You have chosen to give us zero information on what's happening to us, what to do, and where to go if the prison doors were to open. There is a serious lack of commitment for our safety. Lastly, we would like to say a massive thank you to our families and friends who have been...
این تماس از زندان اوین و تماس گیرنده زندانی می باشد.
Lastly, we would like to say a massive thank you to our family and friends who have been and are still the driving force and the backbone fighting for our release and our safe passage back home. Much love, peace out.
Craig Foreman speaking there from inside prison in Tehran. And I've been speaking to Craig and Lindsay Foreman's son, Joe Bennett.
The admiration that I've got for the strength that they both show, to turn up every day. You know, they do turn up, maybe not at 100%, definitely not 100% to be fair. Whenever they're good, they're only ever really okay. But, you know, even if they're feeling 5% of their normal selves, they will still turn up and even if it's just to sit on the other end of the phone and cry, which is, you know, happens quite a lot. I think it's important for them and it's important for us that they do. But like you say, a very sobering message, one that was very calm, it was very collected. And I think it's a very simple ask and a warranted ask, really. You know, they feel a sense of abandonment and like they've been forgotten by their government. But this is... I don't think it's abstract anymore, you know. My parents are sitting in a prison that's being shaken by explosions. Windows are blown out. You've got prisoners diving under beds. It's not detention. It's also a very dangerous place to be at the moment.
Well, as Craig said, the situation has gone from challenging to life-threatening. Is that how Craig and Lindsay feel, like their life is under threat every day?
Yeah, like I cast my mind back to when the bombs first went off. I was on the phone to my mum as that happened, and there was mass panic in the prison. I mean, the shrills and screams in the background, and not just from my mum but other inmates, was like nothing I've ever heard. You know, as I say, the bomb was close enough. It shook the prison walls. It blew out the windows. The ceiling was starting to cave in, and in that moment, you don't know what to say. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't hear or you know the explosion or anything itself, but you could. There was the panic, and then the line cut out, and automatically you're just thinking, what the hell is going on? What's happened? What are you thinking the worst? You know, you don't hear from them. You know, they were already at risk, but we know that Evin Prison was bombed last June. there was another explosion that's been close enough, and yeah, it's dire. They are 100% now in a place that their life is a genuine threat every day.
So time is of the essence in your family's mind, and, you know, Craig had a clear message for the Prime Minister there, the Prime Minister and those others in government, including the Home Secretary, who can do something to make a difference. His message was clear: come out and say we are not spies. Craig and Lindsay have, you know, since being detained, before being sentenced, protested their innocence, and their message is clear to the Prime Minister: come out and say we are not spies. It's that simple.
Yeah, you know, my stepdad said it himself. It's, you know, we are innocent. So the question is simple. If the UK government knows they are innocent, why won't they say it publicly? You know, this is a very, very, as I said, warranted question. Why is it that there's this reluctance to come out and defend innocent UK citizens? And I asked that question. I asked that question to Yvette Cooper in our most recent meeting. I asked it to Hugo Shorter and Hamish Falconer. And it always comes back to the same narrative, which is, well, if we defend their innocence, then that would feed into the paranoia of the Iranian regime that they are spies. And I said, but it also works the other way. If you're not defending your people who are genuinely innocent, then that could also feed into their paranoia. So there's an argument for both. What we're asking you to do is the right thing, tell the truth, and show a bit of leadership and the backing of your citizens. As I say, my parents feel abandoned at the moment, in the sense that they are not expecting them to have a magic wand and bring them home tomorrow, but they are expecting that their innocence is defended publicly by the government, because there's a real feeling of defamation of character as well. And that's another part of it, is people think that they can't be smoke without fire.
And if they're not publicly backed by the UK government, you know, your stepdad and your mum feel that their silence speaks volumes.
Well, that's it. Exactly that. Every day that the government stays silent, I think it sends a message, right? Not just to Iran, but to the world, that British citizens, innocent British citizens, can be taken and there won't be consequences. You know, that they won't advocate for their innocent people and release. So I know Yvette Cooper mentioned it once, and she said that it's unjustifiable and they will work relentlessly to get them home. But not since has she or Keir Starmer publicly in Iran, when they're talking about it in Parliament, mentioned their names. You know, I don't expect it to be top of the agenda. I understand that. You know, there are bigger things potentially in people's eyes going on with nuclear weapons, missiles. And again, I'm not a strategist. I don't get into that, and I don't get into politics. But what I would like to see is that it is on the agenda. You know, these are innocent people. It has to be part of talks. It has to be part of discussions. And I'm just not seeing it.
Yeah. And Joe, I have to ask, what is your family's fear if the UK becomes further involved in what's going on in the Middle East, in this war with Iran? The UK at the moment not directly involved. That may well change. And I just wonder, I mean, you said it doesn't get any worse than your parents being in it in the middle of a war zone. It doesn't matter what countries are involved. It's a dangerous situation. But I guess as a family, you must be following every twist and turn, because if the UK does become directly involved, again, more serious implications for your stepdad and your mum.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you say, the UK are on the periphery of it at the moment. It's the US and Israel that are at war. And you know, I went to Washington recently, and I simply said, my message to Trump was, firstly, please be careful as to what's being targeted with the activity that you're doing. And secondly, don't forget my parents are there. You know, they're innocent. And again, it's all selfish, right? It's selfish of me just to talk about my parents, because there's other innocent people that are in the prison as well. And I hope that any intervention, because we've seen today that Trump's come out and said that talks have been happening, that they're progressing, and that almost I believe there's a ceasefire now for the next 5 days. That's a good start, right? Peace should be the agenda. What we have to hope now is that over the course of the coming days, the talks progress. They progress positively, not, as I say, selfishly just for my parents, but for the people of Iran, to see a good progression there, and also the other innocent political prisoners that are being held within Evin around Iran. We have to hope that that is the end goal, as well as I say, peace.
Joe Bennett speaking to me earlier. We've had this response from the Foreign Office to that interview. They said, since Lindsay and Craig's arrest last year, Britain's ambassador to Tehran, diplomats and officials in London have been working to provide consular assistance. This includes the ambassador visiting them in prison and facilitating calls with their family back in the UK. The Foreign Secretary last met the family on the 17th of March. She set out to them personally how unjustified and appalling their incarceration continues to be. As the conflict in the Gulf continues, this has become even more worrying for the Formans. The UK government continues to work for the safe return of Craig and Lindsay to the UK. Scotland has become the first part of the UK to screen newborn babies for spinal muscular atrophy, a rare condition that causes muscle wastage. The disease can result in breathing and mobility issues, but they can be avoided if the condition is spotted early enough. Back in January, I spoke to the former Little Mix singer Jessie Nelson, whose twin daughters suffer from SMA.
What you're fighting for now is for the heel prick test that all parents will know about when a baby comes into the world. There's that simple test, and it tests for 10 different conditions. You want SMA to be part of that, something so simple. And time is of the essence when it comes to diagnosis. Explain to me why.
So it's a muscle wasting disease, and as time goes on, the muscles start to deteriorate and they eventually die, which can affect, will affect every muscle in the body, like down to their swallowing, and eventually that's what leads them to not making it past the age of 2. So yeah, effectively, if you catch it early, what the treatment does is it almost like freezes the muscles from dying. And it also like rebuilds the ones that are working to be stronger. I don't know if you saw the video of the 2 sisters, the one that's in the wheelchair and the one that's running along with her.
Yeah. One was born first and they didn't get the diagnosis straight away, the other afterwards, and they knew. And she got the diagnosis early, and that treatment was the difference.
I just pray that it does, you know, get changed and it does become part of the heel prick test, because the amount of like heartbreak and hurt that I've like had to endure, I'll never be able to explain it. I just pray that like no one ever has to go through this again, and no one should ever have to, especially when we've got free life-changing treatments.
Well, this could be life-changing for so many families. Joining me now, Giles Lomax, Chief Executive of SMA UK. Giles, really good of you to join us on the programme tonight. An important milestone in Scotland today.
Yeah, I mean, I can't stress enough how important this milestone is. You know, the campaign has been running for nearly 10 years to try and get SMA included on the heel prick test, and to see that actually come to fruition today, after the heartache, the challenges, the conversations, the discussions, it's a wonderful moment to celebrate, but it does highlight some serious issues, that this is just Scotland and this isn't just across the whole UK.
As you said, you know, this has been over 10 years of campaigning to get to this point in Scotland. We just saw a clip of my interview with Jessie Nelson from a couple of months ago. I mean, her twins being diagnosed with a condition, you know, effectively too late to help them properly, has really raised the profile of the SMA community. But a lot of people are saying, look, you know, this is a pilot in Scotland. Why is a pilot needed? This has been tested successfully in other countries and proven to be beneficial.
Yeah, that is correct. So if we look at the international landscape, the evidence is clear, overwhelming, and really starkingly obvious in our face, if I put it that way. You know, you look at Australia, Canada, all of the US now have screening. So that's around about 3.6 million babies that are screened in the US every year. In Europe, there are 75% of Europe now screens for SMA, and including in that is Ukraine. They started screening in October 2022, and over an 18-month period, screened 211,000 babies, finding just over 31 positive cases. So we know the evidence is clear. We know that it's there. What their frustrations lies is why this has not been implemented nationwide, because as Jessie's described in the VT, you know, every moment really matters. Like time is muscle, time is neurons, and every day that goes past and those interventions are not provided, children will get, you know, lose that muscle function every single day that goes forward.
And Jessie Nelson herself sat down with the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, who promised to look at this. What has been the reasoning for it not being introduced in the UK as it has in those numerous other locations you mentioned?
Yeah, so we had a really good meeting with Wes Streeting in January, Jess and myself and Wes, and it was very productive. And I think what came out the back of that meeting wasn't just a look at this, but it was a commitment from the Secretary of State to really say, look, we're going to look to roll out screening faster and actually expand the pilot, potentially in England, into a wider sphere. In terms of why there are delays, I personally believe this is a political decision. I do feel that Wes Streeting can speed this up. I do feel that the international evidence is there. The evidence from clinicians, from papers, from studies, from lived experience across the globe highlights that newborn screening is the best chance possible to allow children to thrive. You know, many of these children who are treated pre-symptomatically before any of that muscle wastage has happened can go on to meet completely normal development milestones compared to a life where they live with complex healthcare conditions.
Yeah, Giles, you talk about that lived experience, and you as a family have that. You've got 8-year-old twins who have SMA. Just, you know, talk to us about them. We're just seeing pictures of them now. They look adorable. But, you know, SMA presents its challenges, doesn't it? And you live with that.
Yeah, correct. So Jesse's twins have SMA type 1, so that's the most severe form of SMA. And around about 60% of the national birth rate within SMA are type 1s. My twins are SMA type 2, so a slightly less severe form of SMA, but serious health condition nonetheless. So my son, as you can see from the imagery, my son's a full-time wheelchair user. He has already started to develop scoliosis in his spine, and he has got a lot of weakness in his legs, and he's unable to walk, can stand, but, you know, that is his primarily form of mobility, is his wheelchair. My daughter, Zara, is able to stand independently, and she is able to walk small steps, but majority of the time she needs a scooter or another mobility aid to really help her get around. Now, we were on treatment pretty much straight away from when they were diagnosed, when they were 15 months old. But if they were diagnosed in the days rather than the months, like I said, they could then grow up to have none of those symptoms. And that's the stark reality that every baby has been facing who has faced an SMA diagnosis over, you know, a 10-year period since the UK National Screening Committee actually rejected SMA to be included back in 2018. I think the moment in time now that Scotland have taken that decision is a really bold one, and I'm really, really glad to see it and be part of that. But it now just highlights that there is a postcode lottery again in the UK, and it shouldn't come down to where you're born to determine the future that you have, particularly in an SMA context.
Oh, Giles, so good to talk to you tonight. Thank you so much. Giles Lomax, their Chief Executive of SMA UK. As it said, for so many families, it really doesn't have to be this way. Thank you so much for talking to us tonight. I appreciate your time. Still to come. In the sport, a review into England's performance at the Ashes has resulted in no change.
I'm Stuart Ramsey, and I'm Sky's chief correspondent.
An enormous explosion has just come down. I think it was a monster just landed in between us.
Hundreds and hundreds of people hoping to get north, ultimately to get to the United States.
It's a border where they're not welcome, yet they keep coming.
We saw snatch squads going in, grabbing people, taking them out and putting them into trucks and taking them away.
They make about 50 kilos of fentanyl a week. It's incredibly dangerous and toxic stuff.
There's been an upsurge in deaths. The fighting between the gangs is getting more and more vicious. Is this now all your territory?
Yeah.
The battlefield is outside the barricades, which is over there. This is much more like a normal town. It's really sending a clear message that Venezuela is eager for change. We've been crushed. Free from wherever you get your news.
We are in the middle of a forest
in a jungle, really, and they're attempting to keep these men alive. This is real, hardcore emergency medicine.
The information on this could bring down the entire network, not just in Iraq and Syria, but across the world.
Sky News, the full story first.
Well, hundreds of thousands of people have been using the beast for years to traverse Mexico, but it is really dangerous. Many people have died riding it.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist... My darling.
Beth Rigby, Sky News.
Is being a Sky News journalist. You said to people, I'm not coming back for more, but you have come back for more. Well, let's kick off. And make a statement. What can our Prime Minister say to you to not impose tariffs? He's coming out! What more do you need?
Our David is here with the sport, and it was an Ashes to forget for England at the beginning of this year, wasn't it, really, David? And so much speculation about what was going to change as a result of that terrible result.
Yeah.
And it seems no heads are rolling.
That's right. I mean, as the Ashes was completely and utterly falling apart for England, there was lots of speculation. Would Rob Key go, England's managing director of men's cricket? Would Brendan McCullum, the coach? Would Ben Stokes, the captain, go?
All the big names.
They're all staying. They're all staying. So there's been this review, and we've heard from Rob Key and also Richard Gould, the ECB's chief executive. And Rob Key has backed Brendan McCullum to adapt and evolve after this complete sort of humbling. Of course, this Bazball style. He says that actually, you know, it's not just one-way traffic in that sense. And he said, you're not asking Brendan to be someone completely different. When you're not authentic as a leader, you're done. But what we all agreed on, you have to be relentless, ruthless and smart enough to adapt. And also, well, Richard Gould said that, you know, actually sometimes moving people on is the easiest thing to do. If you'd sacked him, it would have been the easiest thing to do, but it wasn't the right thing to do. It might not be the popular route, but they think it's the right one. And also, Ben Stokes has made a statement this evening. The last 3 months has without a doubt been the hardest period of my captaincy journey. It's tested me in so many different ways. I'm sure every other captain has gone through this as well. But Brendan McCullum, Rob Key and myself have the passion and desire to take this team forward. We're going to give you everything we have, and we have learnt from those mistakes. We shall see. Richard Gould wants to win the Ashes in 2027. That's not too far away now, 18 months or so, maybe less than. So we shall find out whether they do indeed adapt and evolve. OK, that's as far as the cricket is concerned. Plenty more making the sporting headlines there this evening.
After 4 bids, the latest thought to be £15 million, Liverpool insist they're still talking to Villa.
I was captain of a massive football club at Aston Villa. I've been there 10, 11 years. Your brain starts ticking a bit. Are you ready for a new challenge?
What is happening with Gareth Barry? I was talking with Martin O'Neill privately before, so he knows our ideas clearly.
Rafa phoned me up, offered me a host of players that I didn't really want. That's not the name of the game.
We didn't have the funding to complete it.
Then it was a case of, right, what do I need to do to get the move done?
It was just like lobbing a hand grenade in.
I was fuming.
Fined 2 weeks' wages, banned from the training ground.
If he'd gone to Liverpool in the manner which he did, he wouldn't have gone with my blessing. I would never have spoken to him again.
To make that so personal against Martin O'Neill, I'm amazed he ever actually played for Aston Villa again.
Who would have thought Gareth Barry's Villa career would come to this?
There were chants of Judas, booed every time he touched the ball.
Mentally, it was a real tough period. I regret.
Now, it's one of the biggest and most scrutinised media jobs in the world. Former Google executive Matt Britton is expected to be announced this week as the new boss of the BBC. So, what do we know about him? Our arts and entertainment correspondent Katie Spencer has been furiously doing her homework. Hi, Katie.
I have been.
So, Matt Britton, who is he?
He's an interesting character. He's someone that's been quite a senior executive at Google for 20 years now. And there's a lot of sort of quirky things to his character that the media seem to be picking up on. He's a Doctor Who fan. What does that say about him? Do we like that? He's a former Olympic rower as well. And certainly he's going to need that stamina because he is hitting the ground running as possibly like the top job in this country in terms of media roles. But I think it certainly does send a message of intent, really, the fact that they have picked, or they are expected to confirm that they've picked this Silicon Valley executive as their head honcho, if you like. We live in this changing media landscape at the moment, don't we? TV is dying out, and it is dominated now by the big tech firms. So I think this really does send a signal, really, of the direction that the BBC wants to go on. We know that he has no direct experience in TV journalism, so he is going to have to certainly hire a deputy that is more experienced on that front. And we know, of course, that one of the big things in his inbox will be editorial standards. He has the job, really, of restoring credibility off the back of the Trump panorama saga that we had, which, of course, was responsible for his predecessor leaving. He's got to face the culture wars, the fact that there's all these accusations flying of political bias coming from both sides. So it is a very editorial place that he will be, there will be a lot of focus. A very challenging one for him, but I think certainly it's going to be interesting. He is somebody that can perhaps look into sort of different avenues in terms of commercial ways of the BBC making money.
And how has this been received? There's been no official announcement yet, but what's been the reaction so far?
From those that I've spoken to within the BBC, it is widely expected that he is going to be the person that is named within the next few days. I think people are seeing him in a fairly similar light to Tim Davie, but I think certainly it is interesting that they have gone for this more of a tech figure.
Well, yeah, exactly, in this changing world, this changing media landscape. Katie, thank you very much. Katie Spencer there with the details. An official announcement imminent. That's all from the UK tonight. We'll see you tomorrow night at 8. Up next, It's the World.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra Al-Baghir has this report. And this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
We're trying to see as much as we can.